Okay. So in our case, where we have people who are leaving and then their knowledge is very valuable to the organization, how do you store it? Okay, I will give you a particular case which actually happened in my life. Okay, and it was as I was working for Procter and Gamble in the Philippines. We were still in the plant at in Tondo, and in our plant we had older people, and I was one of the younger people. So it was a very similar situation. One of our older people was um, called Louis, and Louis was a Copra, um, the Copra manager, as we called him. And Copra is really what is it? It's basically the meat of the coconut, and at a certain point it becomes very useful for extracting oil, and that oil is very useful also in making soaps. And therefore as we know, no, the uh, coconut oil is very good for the skin, and that's one of the major components of Safeguard and Kamay, the the, the 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 soaps that were being produced also at that time at that location. So there would be copra deliveries, and then what he would do is that he determines how much the copra suppliers are going to be paid. And he does this by taking a handful of copra, squeezes it in his hand, and then he can say how much moisture there is in the copra. Because of his tacit knowledge, he has learned this over time, that if it feels like this is the percentage. And one way to find out that that's exactly what was happening was that they would also take the same sample, and after about 2 days, they would determine that that's the same amount of moisture. So for example, he grabs it, he squeezes it, and then he says 68%. And based on the 68%, it's how much the copra supplier is going to be paid. And they're waiting for their payment, okay, because usually it's paid in cash at the time. So they rely on his accuracy to be able to pay the right amount for coconut oil. And therefore, if he was making a mistake, then it would cost the organization a lot of money, or it would be unfair to the supplier. So how do we, how at the time, Louis was already in his early 60s. He was supposed to retire already, but they couldn't find the way. How do you store the information that Louis knows? That's a very important skill in the organization, and yet we were going to lose it because he was going to retire. So one way of doing that was to find ways to make the testing run much faster. And they were able to find a way to make the testing run in hours rather than 2 days. And when that happened, only when that happened, was it possible for us to say, okay, automation has actually changed it, where his tacit knowledge is now stored. It's something that can be continued to be used by the organization. However, in many cases, we hear of people who are what we call um, apprentices. An apprentice is a very important position in Japanese culture. So if you are even if you graduate, even if you learn so much, if you're going to be in an organization in Japan, you have to be the apprentice of someone who's going to eventually leave the organization. So apprenticeship is a very important component to them, and apprenticeship can last years. And the reason for apprenticeship is to make sure that the skills of the person who is leaving are passed on to the person who has arrived. And that's a very difficult situation to fulfill, really, when you think about it. Okay, so using that, so far you've written a few things about your mini case discussion on the knowledge of talent. What I'd like you to do then, and this is how online discussions work. When you take a look at an online discussion like the knowledge of talent, then normally in the first half of the week, let's say until Wednesday or Thursday, you would put in your response to the mini case discussion or the discussion forum, and then you're going to react to at least two of the others that have actually created their added their discussion in. So that's one way for you to learn among each other, and also it creates a very interesting dynamic where not only are you learning from the course itself, but you're learning from each other. We tried this already now for at least 2.5 years, and it's been very effective as a way for us to learn from each other. Okay, so this is what we call peer learning, and it's one way for us to minimize the amount of time that we do the online meetings, or as some people would call them, classes. So that's one of the deals. The deal is if you're going to spend time with each other anyway, then why would we put it in a classroom when we can put it in an online activity? Okay, so at least now you know why we have these online discussions. So that's so far what we have for week 1 introductions. Now we're going into week 2. So today we're going to be talking about a topic that we missed the last time. It's very short anyway. It's called recruitment. And we're also going to be doing the topic of selection. And then based on that one, you're going to do another mini case. You're going to do it also online as a discussion. You're given a case data for which is 1 page long, and you have to determine who is the right person to hire for a particular position in Philam Museum. Okay. Then there's also another discussion called Recruitment Methods, and that's a very simple one where you choose one of 3 scenarios and you choose how you're going to recruit them. And then the last one is a reflection of your course so far in the past week and also this week. Okay, good. Any questions before we continue? Any questions? Let me stop this, and I'm going to ask you the question. Okay, here we go. I'm going to ask you a very, very simple question called Shorts Day. Okay, here's the question. It's nice to be in Zoom, and I'm wearing shorts today. Okay, you can either answer yes or no. It's okay. We are not finding out who's wearing shorts exactly. This is an anonymous an anonymous survey, and I will give you another 5 seconds, I guess. Okay, we got 4 out of 4. No, 1 person is not answered yet. Di pa siya sigurado. Ano ba suot ko ngayon? Okay, good. So we're complete. Let's end the poll, and now I'm going to share the results. So 3 of you say, you're wearing shorts. Of course you're at home. My gosh, ang init naman, no? So you have to take a look at that. And then if you say no, that's okay too. Sometimes I don't wear shorts. My wife says, we bought you lots of shorts. Why are you not wearing them? And I'm very, very worried about my own legs. Okay, thank you very much for your participation in this one. I hope that one woke you up a little bit. Let's take a look at recruitment methods. So I'm going to take a look. I'm going to open up now. I'm going to open up the methods of recruitment. And that will be shared here. Okay, and this is our little discussion about methods of recruitment. There are going to be, I'm going to talk about 10 methods of recruitment very quickly, just so that you understand what happens when when you have a job opening and now you want to get a lot of people to apply for that job. Okay. And one of them is job advertising. I think you've seen this a lot in the Philippines. It's very popular. Then you have internet postings, which have already started to replace job advertising. There are headhunting and executive search firms. You have employee referrals, internal recruitment, rehiring former employees, walk-ins, college recruitment, internships, and other creative recruitment methods. Okay, I'm going to start off with the first, and that is job advertising. So we know that job advertising is available in newspapers, and the Philippines is still using newspapers or Diario to be able to advertise to people. And you'll notice, if these newspapers goes throughout the Philippines, and then there's a job advertisement there, is it directed to the right people? Who knows if who are the people who are actually reading those newspapers? No? So you open it up and then you see them in small letters, and you determine, okay, I want to apply to this one. There's a contact, and then there's a way to apply. Sometimes you'll find them in bulletin boards. The job site itself will have a bulletin board. The more expensive locations for advertising are in journals and magazines. Journals are very difficult though, because that means that if you're looking at journals, then the position has a very high um, salary, because they won't put something in a journal or a magazine unless the salary is high. And usually journals and magazines are very directed to the right people. Let's take a look at the next one. Online job boards. We've seen already that online job boards are growing in numbers. We have Jobs, DB, Monster, jobstreet.com or jobstreet.ph, I think is a very popular one. And we're going to take a look at some ideas from JobStreet in a moment. Uh, as I said, these are very easy to access, because as long as you have a computer or you have, let's say, a cell phone, you can take a look at jobs available there. Social media is also increasingly a place where you're going to find job openings. Holy Angel, for example, advertises on Facebook. When we are missing instructors, we need them quickly. Then we put them on Facebook and we say, here are the current openings, and it's been very helpful. Of course, there are others. There's Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Google Plus. That's not so popular anymore, and Instagram. The next one is called headhunting or executive search firms. Now, why do we have these? These are people who are usually um, more experienced and very specialized in their work. And what they do is they talk to a headhunting firm and they say, I am available. Here are my credentials. They could also be still working for another organization. And that's the reason why they're called headhunters. Because a long time ago, when they talk about headhunters, they would find heads and cut them off and then shrink them and whatever horrible thing. But that headhunters also means that they're going to pouch a person from your organization, and then so that they can go into another organization. So in a way, it's good for the person who's looking for the job. It may be also good for the organization that's looking for um, a high end person, and unfortunately, it's not good for the company that already has hired the person. One way of looking at the price of headhunting is that if I were to use a headhunter, let's say I want for my vice president of finance, I need a person there, and I can't find that person easily because it's so hard to find the right qualifications or from inside the organization. So I would talk to a headhunting firm and say, do you have anyone with these qualifications that I'm looking for? Then they would send, let's say, one or two or three recommendations. The organization interviews them, And once they're accepted, then the organization pays the equivalent of 1 to 2 months of the salary to the headhunting firm. Okay, that's the fee that the headhunting firm earns in that case. So the cost is rather high, but if the cost also of recruitment is high, then maybe it might be a well deserved place to search. Then there's also employee referrals, and this is very good. As we call them in the Philippines, endorsement. Okay, i-endorse kita kay ganon. Um, but actually, the real term is referrals. And so, if a person says, let's say if your boss says, I'm looking for another person who has your same skills. Do you have any friends like that? And you say, oh yes, my classmate in this course, which is the one where I learned my skills, is very good at this. Maybe he's available, and that's one way to refer the person. Okay. Referrals are also very, very effective because if the person is reliable, okay, let's say the employee is reliable, the person that they recommend is also thought to be reliable because he would not endorse that person unless they had that reliability. The next one is called internal recruitment. Internal recruitment could be what we might call transfers or even promotions from within. We could also have employee referrals as an example of internal recruitment. But one way of looking at internal recruitment is that you ask, for example, another department, can I have any talent that you have that can do this? And it can be very useful because in certain situations, such as the pandemic, we may have departments that cannot afford to keep a good number of people, but we have also departments that need them. So for example, if they're fully online, one department might need more people. And so to ask them to do a transfer or even a temporary transfer is a very good possibility. Therefore, you're not having to go outside and look for the right person because you already have them inside the organization and you just have to move them from one post to another. Anytime you want to ask a question, feel free. Okay. Also, we have to think about rehiring our former employees. If, say, for example, a person just retired at the age of 60, but is full of energy and it's still capable of working, why not? Why not bring that person back? We have brought back many instructors, for example, and they come back in different roles and usually in the graduate program. So imagine if you needed somebody for the right job and then that person just recently left. You want to keep them in for another year, for example, then you hire them back. You don't have to retrain them. You don't have to talk to them about your corporate culture because they already know it. Okay. Next, we also have what we call walk-ins. Walk-ins are very interesting because it takes a very strong and confident person to walk into an organization's office and say, I'm looking for a job or I'm looking for a career and I would like you to take a look at my resume. So when somebody comes in like that, some organizations will say, no, we don't accept walk-ins. But this is a free person to come in. No, there's there was no recruitment money spent. This person just came in, and this person is full of confidence. So consider that this person might actually be a fit for some kind of a job that is available to you. And then we also have college recruitment such as job fairs. You can have so many people come together from a particular school, and then they can go to a place and they can meet the employers. Holy Angel runs job fairs with potential employers as well. Internships are another way of doing things. Internships are sometimes called co-ops or practicum or volunteering opportunities. And in college, I think you may have done an internship, right? You work for an organization, you for let's say 400 hours only. And if your work was well received by the organization, they'll say, oh, I want to hire this person. Okay, I want to keep this person here, and that can be a good way of finding the job right after you graduate. So for college students, this is a very good way of doing things. Um, then we have the creative methods. For example, something called student leader meetings. This one is an Ayala uh, situation. What you can see here. This was in 2012 though. They got all of these the best of the different schools, and they would come together, and then they would have some kind of a leadership seminar together. And then from that leadership seminar, the people who are hiring are watching and saying, you know, that person has potential, that person can be useful to the organization in this role, or they might say, maybe that person's not ready yet. Okay, so recruitment methods are very good for that. Training and educational partnerships are used abroad, for example. If you get trained for something, and then the organization thinks you perform very well, then that's a good way of hiring you. Finally, and this is hardly used in the Philippines, it's networking. And networking is the ability for people to talk to each other. Um, yeah, it's similar to what you might call dating or kissing frogs, right? I say kissing frogs because that's the fairy tale, right? Where the princess kissed the frog and it turned into a prince. So there are many situations where you can talk to people, and then you can find ways where they will see your capabilities, and then they may consider you for a position. In North America, for example, we believe that 70% of jobs are found because people have networked with the job recruiters. And that is because they found out a little bit more about them in an informal situation. Okay, so networking is a very interesting way of doing things, but it also takes a lot of time and a lot of patience as well. Okay, so let's take a look at the comparison of the different recruitment methods. So in terms of cost and time and effort, so job ads are very low cost, okay, but they can also go up to high cost depending on where you put them. The effort is very heavy because can you imagine when you send out a job ad, then you might probably get 1,000 to 2,000 applicants into your cell phone, okay, or something, or email account, because it went to hundreds of thousands of people who were carrying newspapers. Online social media is very similar, but the time and effort can also be less, quite simply because there are ways for the online social media capabilities to filter it before they actually get to you. Referrals are low cost, so is rehiring, and the effort is not as much. And they can be very useful ways of getting people, especially when you just ask, "Who do you know? Who do we know? Who do we know that we can hire for this?" College recruitment is can be low to very high, especially if you want to set yourself apart. If I were an organization and I went into college recruitment, I have to have a very good reputation because students are careful about whom they want to be hired into. Headhunting is very high cost, okay, but there's very little effort, and sometimes they're being used. Walk-ins, no cost whatsoever, and moderate effort because all you have to do is entertain the person that actually walked in. Then again, it's similar to kissing frogs. You don't know who comes in. They might have a lot of confidence, but they are no fit to the job. Let's take a look at another way of comparing these recruitment methods, and we'll take a look at quantity and quality. If you want to get as many people as possible into the job, into the recruitment process, then job ads and even online social media are the best way. The quality of the people who come in, though, may be very poor and very unsure. If, for example, you did something on social media and said, "We're looking for an assistant," and then anyone who thinks they can be an assistant will actually apply, and that means that you have to spend a lot of time trying to come up with ways to pare down that list of people. Referrals are low in quantity but very good because they've already been filtered by somebody, especially someone in the organization. College recruitment is also good but not very good because again you don't know who's going to come along. Headhunting is has very low because you're only trying to hire one or two persons, and then the quality is very good because the headhunting organization has done all of the selection process for you. Finally, walk-ins, it's moderate, and it's also dangerous because if you allow walk-ins, then many people will just walk in and give you their resume. So one unknown, but it's also something that's ready. We do walk-ins when I was working for elections in British Columbia. We accepted walk-ins. They were one of the best ways for us to get people in. Okay. Now let's take a look at the fresh graduates jobs that were available in May of 2020. Now this is the start of the pandemic, and yet there were still a lot of jobs available. Call center agents, teachers. Teachers was number two. It was amazing that there were still a lot of teacher positions available. And then as the semester started, then they started also cutting back on the number of teachers. So take a look at those: customer service reps, admin assistants, nurses. Um, of the high paying jobs here, there's the medical officers, number 9, and they still had a lot of requirement for that. And I think it was because of the pandemic. Data analyst, that's a new thing that seems to be growing now. And as an entry level position, it's a very good way to start. Now, if you're dreaming, what position can I get? What's the highest paying position? Then you take a look at the highest paying jobs. These are the highest paying jobs that were advertised in Job Axi. Um, at number 1 is the corporate strategy person, and that's a lot of money for a month, right? Um, that's very unusual if you can get that particular position. But if you're going to do that anyway, you're not going to advertise in Jabaxi. You're just going to use a headhunter. Okay, and then IT sectors, they have lots of jobs. The highest of them was 91,000, and I think that might be a cybersecurity expert. And by the way, we do have a course on cybersecurity, and our students are hired immediately after they complete their professional science masters in cybersecurity. Okay, and so these are just examples of the kinds of jobs that you're looking for. If these are the jobs you're looking for, then of course you have to think about paying good money for getting the right people. Okay, and that's it for recruitment. Okay, and the purpose of recruitment is to get as many people as possible who are qualified for the position that you have opened. Okay, questions about recruitment before we proceed? Questions? Oh, I feel alone.
None, sir.
I feel alone. Okay. So in one of your reading resources that was available, there was a case called the Peter Wells case study. Let's talk about it while we have, I think, about 15 minutes. So Peter Wells case study. Can anyone start us off by talking about what was happening in the case study for Peter Wells?
I will start, sir.
Go ahead, Maya.
For the case, I have read. So he is in another country, and uh um for in he adjusted on the communication language, or oh sorry, he adjusted on the language of that the country he is in. And one scenario is when he ordered Coke, but the sales lady keep on imposing that the ruling that he should buy that set, uh, but uh, but he only needs the half of that product. So that's it.
Okay. So yes, Peter Wells is an exchange student, and he's in Managua, Nicaragua. Okay, so he's learning Spanish, but at the same time he wants to impress his classmates. So he wants to show them what it's like to have anong tawag doon? Coke, rum Coke.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ramco.
Rum Coke. And it's so interesting because there's in Managua there's a rum which is very well known called Extra Seco. In the Philippines, what is our most popular rum? Does anyone know? Tanduay, right?
And why, sir, for me?
Okay. So if you did the same thing in the Philippines, you combine Coca-Cola and Tanduay, there's a very nice distinct sweet flavor, and it has it's a nice thing to it. So he wanted to do something like that because it's something that that is also taken in Canada. And Canada Day is on July 1st. It happens to be June 30th. This case is in June 30th. And now he's been going around. It's June 30th in the evening, and he's going around different stores, parang sari-sari store, and he cannot find Coca-Cola. And finally, he found the place that says "I Coca," which means that we have Coke. Um, and as he goes in there, he says, "Okay, I want to buy a case of Coke." Then that's 24 bottles of Coke. And instead, he was taken aback because instead of 24 bottles of Coke, there were 12 bottles of Coke and 12 bottles of Fanta Orange. And so we was wondering what's going on here. Uh, and so, he said, I want all Coke, please. And then they told him, no, if you want to buy Coke, you have to buy also Fanta. Okay, of course, and that's not going to work. So what's he going to do about the situation? Then that's really the case here. Okay, so that's the situation about the case study. There are no right or wrong answers, but what is your gut feel about this one? Okay, we're going to go around. We're going to ask everybody to answer this one. What is their opinion? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. There may be answers that are inappropriate, but some that make sense and some that are really surprising. Okay, so we'll take a look at that. Since you got us started already, Myra, what do you think? What do you think Peter Wells should do?
If I'm on his case, sir, because he's already on a tight budget, and the sales lady really imposed that he needs to buy that set, but he only needs the half case of the Coke. So if he will going to buy two sets kasi he cannot afford it already. So And for him kasi he really it's very important for him to impress his classmates on the following day. So to locate another store for the availability of Coke in another store is he is already time running he has already no time for that because even if he will be searching another stores, maybe he cannot find. But I guess ano ba?
What would you do?
For me, sir, I just buy that one case. Even if only half of that will be needed for the rum coke. The Fanta will still be a drink naman eh. So may of course it will be short. The supply will be short, or perhaps his classmates will not be having that all can taste the servings of the rum coke. Pero at least so that's for me, sir. I will just stay with the one case.
Okay. So you're going to accept 12 Coke and 12 Fantas. Okay.
Yes.
Wow. That's going to be interesting. That's going to be interesting with the classmates. No? Anyone else? I'm going to go around. Okay. I'm going to ask everybody. So who wants to go next? What do you think?
Can I go next, sir?
Go ahead. Noviel.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'm actually been in the same situation before, pero hindi ko alam if it will coincide with the same situation as Peter. But I think first I'm going to make a deal with the seller, because sometimes they do that for a purpose to have half of this and half of that. So I'll ask first the seller if I can buy the Coke with its regular price. So if I can buy it without the Fanta. So before kasi I'm actually buying a medicine. So no nag-start yung pandemic, I was buying this medicine and it includes another medicine. So actually I made it successful. Now I bought the medicine. Sorry, bear with me. I'm a bit nervous, sir.
Ay, okay lang. You're among friends. Okay.
Okay. So ayun, I will ask first the seller if I could buy the Coke with a regular price, for a regular price, or without the Fanta, sir. So if he agree with it, I will buy the Coke with the regular price, with the number of Coke that I need. And if she didn't agree with it, I guess I'll go with same with Miss Myra. I'll go with the Fanta and the Coke too.
Ang bilis mo naman mag-give up. Nako. Humingi ka tapos alam mo in North America, ha? When we
Yes,
ask
sir.
this question, ang mga tao, lalo yung mga puti, the first thing they'll
Opo.
say is,
Yes, sir.
that's unfair. Oh, papagalitan nila yung nagsisell. So
Yes, sir.
they keep talking about that's not fair. Yung gano'n, no? So anyway, that's so you will ask, no? Makikiusap ka, and then if that's not possible, then that's it. Would you pay a little bit more though to convert all the Fanta into Coke?
If I have the budget, sir, but of course, if I have a tight budget, I guess I stick with the Fanta and the Coke po.
Okay. Sige. Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
sir. Thank you.
So how about Annalisa? I think you're raring to answer the question.
I am not sure po, but I guess one of the reason why the seller asked that guy to get the other half of the Fanta instead of the full, or if the full case of the Coke, it is because he's seen this guy that he's really eager to have this Coke, so maybe he might thought that oh, he really need this, so I can take advantage or the opportunity to sorry, nervous po. to
Oh,
ano
okay.
to have a more sell or to double the price or to sell this Fanta that are not really na hindi nabebentahin po. And
Oo, tama,
maybe
hindi nabebenta, oo.
so maybe I'm gonna ask of one of my friends. I just leave the store, and since I still do have the time, I'm gonna ask one of my friends to try to um get at least one of the Coke or buy one Coke if it's gonna be the same scenario or not. And
Yung
and if it's the seller allowed my friend to get just the Coke without the Fanta, then I will ask, maybe there are 24 people in the party. They can get like two, or they can ask for the Coke without that showing the seller that they really need it, something like that, just to save some money for the party. Or but if the seller really even though you are trying to get just one Coke and really selling the other Fanta, or like for example yung same scenario, even though you're just buying one Coke, maybe I'll just negotiate with the seller to if I can get other things like the ramen or the rum or the alcohol, since I need that also, just to save talaga because it's really sayang. Yun po.
so you're also going to do a deal now.
A deal
If
if
you
I
sell
can,
me
but not the
all
Fanta.
Coke. Oh, not the
Yeah,
Fanta. So no to
not
the
the
Fanta.
Fanta. I will ask if there is any other things on that store that I might gonna need for the party. So instead of getting the party, I'll just get those things na lang.
Very interesting. Okay. Sounds like a good idea. Okay, thank you. Are you okay, Arlene? You want to talk about it?
For me, I have same sentiments with Annalisa. I think since Peter is not a local person in the country, I think he could ask his friends who is local in the area to buy for him, and see if the seller offer the same amount of Coke and Fanta to him, and if in the case that um, that's if 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 in the case that that's really the seller's marketing strategy, like selling one of Coke, one is to one of Coke and Fanta, I think um, if I were in his position, I think I'll just grab it, since I think we Filipinos are more of like accepting what
Accepting.
yeah yeah like we're like getting what's in front of us, something like that.
Interesting. Very nice. Very nice. I like all of your answers because I think they're very typical of Filipinos. Um, when we are put into a situation, we don't want gulo. No? We just want, let's ayusin na natin to. Let's just get along with it. Let's just do it. Um, and in let's say another country, in let's say yun nga, North America and Canada, in the United States, the first thing they will really talk about is that's unfair. They should not do that just because I'm white. Ganun, no? May pagka gringo nga, gringo ang kung tayo, we also do the same thing to people of other countries. We call them puti. It's our signal to each other to say, oh, this person is different to us. And so when you think about it, you're on the side. You're actually on the same side as the person who is selling the Coke and Santa. Would you have taken advantage of that? What's the real story there? So, as you know, it's always difficult to, as the case alludes to, it's always difficult to get a lot of Coca-Cola at the end of the month. because the next delivery would be the beginning of the month, which is July 1. And July 1 also happens to be the date when uh, Canada Day is, when he wanted to celebrate with his rum coke. So here are um, the person who wrote this one is called John Mather. John Mather was one of my colleagues in one of the colleges here in Canada, and he allowed me permission to use this. This was this was actually in a multiculturalism seminar in 2006, and we were when we talked about it, the people who were in the multicultural seminar were a lot of them were white drivers of buses, and they were not very good at cultural appropriation. You know, they're like understanding the differences in cultures in Canada, and they always thought, oh, you know, this is my country type of thing, which is very strong right now in the United States. No? But anyway, when he wrote this one, it was a real case. It was him. He was the person like called Peter Wells, although it happened in another country, and I think it was Colombia. And the case, the situation was exactly the same, where he asked, and then they told him, you have to buy half Coke, half Fanta. Back in the days, and you'll know how old I am. back, back when I was younger, we had similar situations, but the difference was that they would offer cases which were mixed Coca-Cola and Royal True Orange. Okay, so they would offer them where there's 12 bottles of Coke, 12 bottles of Royal True Orange. And I was wondering at the time, why is that the case? And they say that, well, when the bottling company gives them everything, they say, okay, let's say here's 20 cases of Coca-Cola and then 15 cases of Royal True Orange. But Royal True Orange does not sell as fast as Coca-Cola. So by the end of the month, before the next delivery, the first of the month, ubos na yung mga Coke, or malapit na maubos, and then marami pang sa isa. So what they do is, if you buy a case, then they will mix it. They will give you maybe 3 of the Royal True Orange, or 6, or even 12 of them in a case of 24. So it was actually practiced in the Philippines before. And in this case, this person was not trying to take advantage of the situation. This person was trying to practice what people have known is a normal practice at the end of the month. If you can't get a full case of Coca-Cola, then they'll just naturally assume that, oh, you're also okay with any soft drink, so we'll just give you also 12 Fanta instead of that. So in this case, the person was not taking advantage. This was just practicing what they were used to. So the next thing is this. What is it that John Mather did that actually got him 24 bottles of Coca-Cola? And guess what? All he did was to talk about his whole situation. He said, I am trying to impress my friends. I want them to try extra seco with the Coca-Cola. And I'm appealing to you to give me a full case of Coca-Cola so I don't lose face. And to his surprise, the seller gave him the full case of Coca-Cola without any Fanta. Okay, so all it was just a matter of understanding the other culture, and then trying to understand also that explaining the situation is not a bad thing. Okay, instead of looking at the two of them as adversaries in a particular situation, and creating this tension between them. There were other creative answers. I presented this also in business strategy courses in the college level. And here are some of the most interesting answers as well. One of them was was more, lethal in a way. To say, I will never buy again from you, something like that. Okay, some threats. Although that did not bode very well. However, there was one who really said something which was very unusual and very interesting. He said, well, it's the 30th, and the next day there is going to be a delivery of Coke. Right? So there won't be a problem with the supply of Coke. Why doesn't he buy his Coca-Cola in the morning or afternoon, since his party will be in the evening? And all of us who had been looking at this case for the longest time just kept saying, that's a great idea. It's not necessarily, a negative thing. He can always say, okay, I'll come back tomorrow. So there are many solutions to a problem, which doesn't necessarily mean that the problem has a single solution. Okay, and that's what a case is for. And this is just an example of a case, because you're going to have another one next week, which is called the PhilAm Museum. In the PhilAm Museum, you're going to have different options, and you're going to defend your options. Okay, so this is what a case is like. Okay, oh my gosh, we are 10 minutes past our timing, and what I'll do is I'll ask you if you have any questions before we do a short break. Any questions? Okay, if none, then we'll have a 5-minute bio break. Okay, it's also good for me because I need to refresh myself. Okay, I'll see you in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to turn off my screen. I'll also stop the recording, and then when we come back, we'll start the recording again, and I'll talk about compensation. Oh, no, sorry, selection. Okay, good. I'll see you in a moment. Let me share with you what will happen on the final day. That means that it will give you enough to take a look at what's going on in the next few weeks. So as you're learning something here, as you pick up something and you're, on your self-study, you'll find out that there are things that might be applicable to your organization, where you're working right now, or where you worked before. And you can use that to take a look at how you apply the concepts of talent management into that organization. So the first thing that we have to consider is that there are going to be very many topics. There's topics for talent acquisition, which we're talking about right now. For talent retention, that is how you keep the talent that you have. And then also talent development, so you make that person move along in the organization. And also saying goodbye to your talent, so what we might call what's the right word for it? Termination. Okay, termination is in different ways. Now it could be amicable or not. Okay, an amicable termination is where the person retires or quits because they have a better offer, and then the not amicable one would be firing. And then sometime, by the way, by the fourth session, that is 2 weeks from now, we'll even take a look at what happens when you have to fire somebody. Okay, so those are all the topics that are coming up, and what I want you to do is to consider a particular topic which you think would be useful to report on and how it applies to your organization. And take a look at the this is in your final week 5 module, and you'll be able to see what kind of topic you can think of, right? So your final project should be, it has to have these minimal things. It's going to have a specific topic. It could have, for example, a profile of your organization, the specific scenario, um, how that topic applies to your organization and what recommendations you would make, and any conclusions you can draw from the research and analysis of this. There are two outputs here, and one of them is the PowerPoint presentation, which is going to be done on the fifth week. We have a 2.5-hour session then, and so the first 1.5 hours will be the actual presentation, and we're giving it a little bit more time just in case. Then the Wednesday after that one, you can complete an APA formatted paper. Here's an example of a paper that I wrote for my master's program. And that one will allow you to look at how you use what they call APA formatting. And we will take a look at, I'll take a look at your paper, which is usually 6 pages double-sided. Okay, and sorry, double-spaced, and we'll have a cover page. Okay, so one way to do this very simply. You can take my paper and then you can take out all my text and, and then just use it as a sample, or you can create a brand new one using the sample APA formatted paper. And these are the things I'm looking for in the paper: content, organization, and style. Okay, so those are the things that will form your final grade. Also, your final grade for this particular course is in different kinds of participation, and that is participation here in these sessions, um, um, answering online discussion questions, not necessarily the quality of the answers, but also, the insights, the kind of things that you learn. In the case of I think it's due next week, is that you're going to have a journal, a personal journal, which you will talk about what's happening to you right now, and how it affects your learning and everything. And that one, you just get the full points for that one, okay? But as long as you are true to yourself as you answered that particular question, okay? So that's what's going to happen in the final session. So we have a presentation on the final session. Each one of you will have how much time? Between 5 to 10 minutes. Actually, 10 minutes. I think we can average 10 minutes, and then I'll tell you when you hit your 10 minutes, and I won't stop you, but I will let you continue until it's over. But if it hits 15 minutes or 20 minutes, then I'll stop you completely. Okay. So I hope you understand. Okay. So that's what's coming up. And now let's take a look at your topic for the next topic. Before we do that, I'm going to ask you another question. Okay, here we go. And the next topic is recruitment, is selection. Okay, I'm going to launch this one. So the question is, recruitment and selection are the same thing. And you can answer whether that's right, or there are some differences, or does it really matter if there are any differences, as long as you get a good candidate. Okay, go ahead and answer the question. And I think wow, it's done. Okay, I'll share the results. So everyone said that there are some differences, and that's true. Okay, there are some differences between recruitment and selection, and that's what we're going to do right now. So one way of looking at it is that recruitment is the process of getting as many successful possible candidates. Okay, as many possible candidates, and so that you have a pool of candidates that you can choose from. And the more the merrier, right? I mean, it's much better to have more people to select from rather than very few to select from. You might not have a good selection. So that is the purpose of recruitment. So the end product of recruitment is many candidates. However, the end product of selection is the person who will actually be hired. Okay, and that's why selection and recruitment are different. The selection process will take all of the candidates from the recruitment process and then see whether those are going to be whom they can choose from those to be able to come up with a successful candidate. Okay, so let me now start sharing the slide for selection. And by the way, these slides are available to you also from the website. Okay, let's start off. We have just all of these topics available to us. We'll take a look at selection and screening methods. How do we take from, let's say, 100 potential candidates to a single one, right? So we have to bring it down by screening, selecting, and filtering down. Finally, making the hiring decision, and then what kind of metrics are we looking for to make sure that we are hiring correctly, okay? Let's continue now with screening or selection. What is it? It's a systematic series of activities done to assess the qualifications and competencies of applicants to determine whether or not they can be hired for the vacancy. Another word that we can use here is shortlisting. So if you've done this in an organization, they'll say, oh, these are all our candidates. I-shortlist na natin. And that's to use some kind of screening process. So here are the different screening methods we're going to look at. The first one is paper screening. The second is testing. And the third is the interview. And everyone knows already the interview process, right? But to actually get to the interview, you need to further screen before you actually choose who you'll interview. It's good to know also this process because you, on the side of you, who is the applicant, you'll also understand how organizations do this. So in the paper screening, the first thing we use is all kinds of application forms, biographical data or biodata, or as we might call them also, or if you're using only resumes or CVs, curriculum vitae, then that's another way of looking at paper screening. Now, paper screening is you just lay down all of the forms, take a look at all of the salient features of each candidate, and then you start, determining who's going to fit or not. And that's why you have all of these organizations telling you, write a very good resume, because a resume, when it's looked at, will only be looked at in a short period of time. It's lucky if somebody will look at your resume for 1 minute. Okay, so if they will look at it for more than 1 minute, then it looks like you might be a potential for that particular position. Okay, another way of looking at screening is testing. And there are different kinds of testing available. There's cognitive, job knowledge. If you're hiring for a particular skill, it's good to know the job knowledge. There are also things like integrity tests to make sure that the person is someone you can trust. Okay, situational analysis, work samples, and then physical ability tests. Okay, let's take a look at the samples of these. Here's a testing for cognitive ability. Okay, these are tests of achievement or of aptitude. It helps find out how well this person can do certain things. Okay, so on the right side, take a look at that and see if you can fill in that blank portion. It is a pattern test. Okay, and you're taking a look at what pattern among the 6 patterns below will fit in that particular location. Okay, so what do you think will be the fit in there?
3.
Go ahead, give it a try.
Number 3 po.
Number 3. Okay, number 3.
Ay, hindi po. Number 5. Sorry, hindi ko natin.
Number 5. Oh my. Okay. Mhm. Can you explain why number 5?
Then I've noticed those two samples, they were just combined.
So parang you're adding them, no? And then you get the third one at the bottom. So as you add the top one,
I'm not sure.
yeah, no, that's correct. As you add the top one to the bottom, to the second one, it becomes the third. No? Yeah,
But
that's right.
Tama.
Tama yung 5. So that's you'll have probably a lot of these in the test. So it's not just one of them. So if you make a few mistakes, okay lang, then, and it's not right or wrong. It's also trying to find out how does this person think, and if that's a better fit for the position. Okay, another kind of testing is job knowledge test. Okay, say for example, the job knowledge is for for, let's say, an accounting position. So they would give a test like this one: the gradual changing of an expense of an asset's cost over its expected useful life is known as A, profit; B, devaluing; C, cost of accounting; and D, depreciation. Anyone here who did very well in their college accounting?
I think letter D.
Oh my gosh, talagang si Arlene knows her stuff, ha? Tama, depreciation yan. So yeah, as you're changing the expense of an asset's cost over its expected life, you are depreciating it. And it's like, and there are very many different ways of depreciating. And so if, for example, the person gets through this one, then they'll say, this person knows the job. Okay. Here's another one. This is also another kind of testing. It's a personality test. And sometimes you would find them in tests like Myers-Briggs. Here's an example of one where you ask the question: I prefer to work in a group rather than work on my own. Strongly agree to strongly disagree. When you combine a question like this one with many other questions, then it will help determine the personality of that candidate. It may not necessarily be a good thing to say, I want this kind of personality. It will just help the people who are hiring to find out what kind of personality this person has and whether it's a good fit for the position. Okay. Another one is this. This is called an integrity test. And this is a test of, it's a person true to their word, for example. Are they honest, trustworthy, dependable? I think it's all right to take more office supplies than I need. Lalo na pag Pasko, no? Yung mga tape na nawawala sa opisina, nakakatawa. So, of course, no, you're thinking as a candidate, I should strongly disagree with this. So that's the way you're going to answer. But there will be more than just this kind of question. No? There would be several kinds of questions that will be asked. And that's to find out, whether you're a person who could be trustworthy. And if you take one office supply, take it home, hey, that's okay. But if you take a lot, okay, tapos pinagbibili mo na, now that's another story. Okay. All right. Another one is called situational judgment test. Okay. How does the person deal with the situation? And here's an example of a situation where you are asked to stay in the office. Well, you're staying in the office and you're asked to finish something which will be completed at 8:30, but you have tickets and your date are supposed to be in an 8 o'clock concert, no? What would you do? Okay, and then in this case, they're already showing the number of points, but in reality, there would be no points assigned to it. Tell your manager that you cannot stay because of the concert. Explain the situation. Tell your manager you will stay, and then try to find someone else who can stay, and etc. Right? So you're given a situation. How would you react to it? Sometimes these are what you might call stress tests. Okay, they ask you a stressful question, and then how would you react to that stress? Okay. Another kind of test is what we call work sample. If let's say you're going to be a cargador, syempre you have to show that you can carry. And there are things that are required. Let's say you should be able to carry 50 pounds from point A to point B. Let's say about 20 meters away. No, without any effort. And then they'll ask you, how are you going to carry it? Let's say if it's a sack of rice, how would you bring it to your back? How would you kneel down and all that? No, all of those things are part of the work sample or physical fitness or ability test. Now, the question is, would this be unfair for people like persons with disabilities? And in the case of a cargador where it's not meant for a person with disabilities, this is what they call a bona fide occupational requirement. That means uh, it's okay. It's okay to request for that because that's what's required. For example, if they're hiring you for driving and then you have no driver's license, that's also a bona fide occupational requirement. So in the case, for example, where you say um, you need somebody to file and to work in an office, then even a person with disability can apply for the position. Okay, there's no bona fide occupational requirement there. The only kind of work sample test they will find from you are things such as your ability to find files, to get to be organized, etc. Okay, so these are the different things that normally would happen if you're trying to test somebody for the position. There are also going to be all kinds of interviews. And by the way, interviews are not just a matter of asking questions. There are certain kinds of questions you're looking to answer. A good behavioral interview is one where you ask the person to describe situations that would be very nice and applicable to the new position and find out how they react to situations such as that. So the behavioral and situational interview will ask that. The stress interview will ask them inappropriate questions, okay, and see the reaction of the person. They can even wrongly ask questions that are related to taboo questions such as sex, personal life of the person, etc. Okay, but as long as it's stipulated that this is a stress interview or stress question, then that would be part of it. Unfortunately, that's getting close to being in poor taste and also bad for the organization. So normally stress interviews are not used as much. They do them in situations like um, for people in a stressful situation like the doctor's office, emergency room kind of thing. Then there's also the structured interview where you have all the candidates ask the same set of questions by several people. Okay. Finally, there are certain ways you can enhance the validity of your interviews. The first one is to make sure that your questions are open-ended rather than answerable by yes or no. So an ineffective question would be, do you like our company? Siyempre, they'll answer yes. How about what are your impressions about the company is a more appropriate way of asking the question. Behaviorally anchored as well. And finally, non-discriminatory. So you're not going to go out and ask the religion of the person. It could be useful later on, but may not necessarily be useful for the job. And in a situation where somebody says they cannot work Saturdays, If there's a bona fide occupational requirement to work on Saturdays and they cannot because of a religious practice, then unfortunately that person may not fall within that. So there are many other things that can come from this. However, you cannot discriminate based on certain answers. You can simply say that there's a bona fide occupational requirement, and if they can't fulfill that, then you must find a way to accommodate, or you will just eliminate the person from the running. Another way of enhancing validity is to conduct multiple interviews. Don't just interview once. Um, people who are being interviewed will try to answer the questions the way they think they should be answered, rather than from sincerity, from a good point of view. Have several interviewers for cross validation, and what you have to do is train your interviewers for effective and acceptable questions to remove biases. There was one where, my gosh, we were interviewing students, and one of the instructors in our panel asked, ano, may boyfriend ka na ba? And I thought, that is so inappropriate. So I nudged him and said, you can't ask questions like that. So, questions have to be appropriate as well. Okay, finally, when you think that you have the right persons, you still have to do what we call the pre-employment background checks, criminal record checks. You might ask for an NBI clearance. Pre-employment health checks. You might even have a drug testing. Okay, and then other kinds of health checks, like they would go through a physical examination, etc. Right? Okay, here's what happens when you're trying to select. Okay, remember, recruitment is supposed to get us many candidates. So in this case, you have the many candidates. Let's say you have 1,000 candidates. And what you would like to do is to bring that down to a manageable few. You can do it, for example, using robots. Okay, robots could be filters that are found in applications such as online applications. So first, you might look for certain keywords, and then you'll bring it down to a certain number. If the keywords are fitting, then they get a score, and the highest 200 scores will be accepted. And so when you try to send your resume, okay, this is a tip for you. If you're sending your resume to an organization, read about the organization, research about the organization. What kind of language do they use? And what you try to do is to tailor your resume to the language of the organization. So you're going to pass this robot test, okay? Because it will sound like you know the organization. It will even get you probably over here, okay? Because if you're using the terms that they use, if let's say they're using human resource management instead of personnel, or they're using talent instead of applicant, okay? So use the same wordings that are going to bring you way past the filter of the computer. Okay, then you're down to, let's say, maybe 100, and then they would do something that they would call a quick pass through. So if you wanted to look at 100 in 1 hour, then that means you're looking at, let's say, 100 resumes in for 30 seconds each, or 30 or 40 seconds each. And that's a fast one. So that's why people say you have to have a very good resume, and your resume should have the keywords that are being asked for by that particular organization. And that's very quick. So the HR person is going to look at it, look for certain keywords, and then we'll put it in one of two piles. One is the accept pile, and one of them is the reject pile. And then that will bring you down to, let's say, 25. And then from there, they go into deeper looking at the number of candidates that they can interview. Then they bring it down to a few candidates. And by the way, they don't stop with just one final candidate. They may have two others that are on the side. And the reason for that is if the first candidate says, I cannot accept this job, then you may have to go to the second candidate. Okay. So these are the different ways of filtering. So filtering is a way of making sure that you go from uh, your huge recruitment numbers into a selected few. Okay, so you can get a title filter, you can have a keyword ranking, then here's that HR officer scan that I mentioned. Okay, you're down to the manager review. The manager goes through 25 resumes, let's say at the rate of 2 minutes each. And so that's a full hour. And then down to the interviews. Have you seen the TV series uh, America's is this ano yun? America's Got Talent? Okay. Sometimes they'll show when they're down to a few candidates, they'll show that they have their pictures and their uh, stats in front of them, and then they combine them and they put them together into groups. That's what the manager review is similar to. Okay. Finally, the hiring decision. Once you make the decision, it should be systematic, objective, well-informed, and timely. You cannot wait for it to last too long. To tell you the truth, there was a time that we were having difficulty getting the right teachers in Holy Angel because the decision was not timely. It would take, for example, a week and a half before the person is called and would be hired. Well, in the meantime, they've already gone to another school. So it's necessary for us to quickly time our decisions quickly. Okay. Now there are also good decisions and bad decisions. One of the bad decisions is you base it only on your own judgment instead of the facts, instead of objective things. It's also based on impressions instead of actual real situations. Okay, a single source of information and delayed decisions. So it's much better to make sure that you follow all of these things over here. Here's the content of the final job offer. The job offer will have a position title with the salary, the start date, and a job description. And if you want to, you can allow the person to sample for a work day, or if the person is really convinced already, then they'll just say, I'm okay with that. I accept. Okay. Finally, here are the things that we look for as we're trying to hire the right people. We want to be sure that the cost of hiring is not very high. Okay, so the cost per hire metric is a very important metric. How do we bring down the cost of hiring a person? If it let's say costs uh, 20,000 pesos to hire somebody, okay, and that's a lot of money because that's all the amount of time and effort to bring it down from, let's say, 100 to one person. That's a very expensive way of hiring one person. Uh, the time to hire metric. How long does it take when you send out um, the recruitment call to the time that you actually hire somebody? And then finally, what about the applicant yield? Okay, how many applicants and how many are hired? If this is a low ratio, it may be good, it may be bad, depending on the situation. Okay, and so those are the topics that we covered for this particular section, and I hope that it's very useful for you. Okay, looks like I'm out of time for the compensation discussion. Okay, so maybe what we'll do is let's go round robin and talk a little bit. Oh, okay, and who's Philip? I have,
Sir, good
hello,
morning.
good morning. May I know who you are?
Um, Sir, ano po ang tawag doon? Nasa kabilang class po ako kanina. Kaso, our professor decided to transfer me here since sabi niya, I am most fit in this program. Green MBA daw po. So, sabi ko po, sige, ganun.
Well, Philip, earlier we were talking about there were no males in our course except me. So welcome aboard if you want to stay here.
Yes, sir. Thank you po.
Okay. And so to catch up, you'll be able to I'll put you into the course, and then there are module 1 and module 2 activities. It's for the first and second week. And there are going to be recordings for sessions such as this. Okay.
Okay po.
When did you come in? Nasa gitna ng
I think mga 5 to 10, more or less 10 minutes ago, sir.
Okay. Well, good to know. The more the merrier. Okay, we're going to be doing something that I call a round table before we close for today. So we have about 10 minutes to go. I just want to ask everyone in the group, is there anything that you want to provide? What did you learn today? What is something new, something that you can use later on? So shall we do it by reverse alphabetical order? Naku, mauuna si Apple yan. Ay, yeah. We can get to you later, Philip.
Yeah, okay, sir.
Sige. Mukhang mag-start kay Apple. Can you hear us, Apple?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any insights from today?
I think about talent management, about selection and recruitment, on how we hire the client, the knowledge and personality about the person.
Okay. Anything else? Yeah. Sorry, on and off kasi.
Yes, sir.
Okay na yung internet mo?
Ano po kasi umuulan po, sir.
Oh no. Okay. Good. So let's take that. Anyone? Let's go backwards now. Sinong susunod? Si Myra palang susunod.
Yeah, ako po pala. So, for all the topics we have discussed, from the recruitment, the selection, and I guess I'm more on the sharing maybe. I have seen the process for the recruitment, and it's a thorough process. So yeah, it should be applied, of course. But however, for that type of process, from the recruitment to the selection, it's more on it's really applicable for private companies, of course, or private organizations. Though for the government sector, we employ some of those naman. However, syempre, though on paper or on the process, we apply those. And it should how nice if it is being followed throughout, especially for the selection part, where the top one will be the ones to be selected or will be the ones to be endorsed for the plantilla position.
Yes.
Because of course he or she had undergone all the processes, and it would be unfair for them being the top one, but not the ones being selected for that position. Though there are so many scenarios kasi, especially for the government sector na very limited item. But I always go for though some agencies naman employ the headhunting and the for that, sorry for the headhunting and
there are many that do not follow for what do you call this, government positions, no?
yeah.
Do you still have civil service examinations?
Yes, sir. Of course. That's the primary or that's the basic requirement. So you could enter for the government position. That's the very first part on the recruitment, wherein there will be shortlisting as per the eligibility. That's the first entry or the first criteria an applicant should meet. But for the rest, like for the qualifications, for the validation, all the process for the recruitment and selection, yeah, they are employing that. However, but of course, I should, okay.
You know, you have a very unique situation where you can, in your final presentation and also in the online discussions, you can talk about the differences. For example, later in another session, we'll take a look at different benefits, and government offices have GSIS, they don't have SSS. So, you know, there are differences already in that particular discussion. I don't even talk about GSIS in my presentation.
Yeah, but the very unique part for a private organization that as for the government sector is a limiting factor for us is it would be nice if we could have that part for the private organization, the headhunting or there's the recruitment of a specific person for that specific job, because it's more productive rather than employing someone. Though we have this so-called contract of service or the job orders, however, it's just a very limited period of time, and for high-end personnels, they will not maybe we have limited budget kasi, so limiting factor is the wage for to hire that high-end employees. So maybe though for some nagagawa naman nila, kaya lang not all, hindi lahat ng mga government agency kaya nilang defend yun sa DBM. So thank you.
Yeah, you have a very unique point of view which could be rather useful to the rest of us here, no? And take advantage of that, no? Because the procedures in government are so different. You know, let us know also how that works. Okay, thank you very much. Who's next? Annalisa?
Hello. It gives me an idea on how to get the best applicant for that fits the job, and also it taught me, or it gives me knowledge that, like for example, the company does not have this much budget. What is the best options on how to hire people if you do have only a limited time frame, and also if the job vacancies really need someone to fit in, but you don't want to sacrifice the what do you call this? You don't want to sacrifice the um
Quality.
yes, sir, the quality of the person that you would like to hire. I've learned that there are some options on how to get the best applicant with just a limited time of frame. And also in the future, I can use this, like, for example, I want to apply for a job, and um, for me not to be able to waste my time, I need to check what are the, or to review the company's hiring, if what are they really looking for, so that I wouldn't waste my time on applying to that job if in the end I will not get it naman.
Yeah. And that's a very good tip, no? That especially when you're trying to apply for a new job, what would you do to make that happen? And I think we could spend, let's say, 15 minutes in the next session to talk about what tips you can have to make sure that you will be out there in front when the job um, when they're starting to filter the jobs, or when they're starting to select. Because when I learned how I could change the way that I apply, and I put effort into it, and then I was getting more callbacks. So I was actually being interviewed, and finally I did get a particular job. And it's good to know that the features, knowing what's happening in the selection process, is an advantage to you, because you will be able to game it. You could be able to find the ways to use it in your favor. Okay, thank you very much, Annalisa. I have Noviel coming up in my list.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. If you have any insights about today's sessions.
Actually, sir, I have a question. Is headhunting similar for pirating?
In a way, it is. Yeah.
It's just an informal term to use, or not really. I often hear it in my office. So
That's true. That's a good question. Sometimes, if it's done in a very unusual way, it's pirating, no? Kasi somebody is getting your person, okay, your talent from your organization, by giving them something that's attractive, and that organization is not necessarily the final organization. It could be an agent. If it's an agent, then that's a headhunter. But if it's the final organization, then that's simply pirating.
okay, sir, that would be all actually. Thank you.
What is your industry again? Sorry.
I work for a bank, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
Finance, banking and finance.
Oh, and a lot of wait, you're in the Santo Rosario branch?
Yes, sir. Philippine
Okay.
National Bank, actually, sir.
Okay. In that case, there's a lot of pirating happening in the banking industry, no?
Actually, sure, especially with branch managers
Yes.
from
Yes,
one
branch
bank to
manager.
another.
Oh, my gosh. Oh. Oh well.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yes,
That's
sir.
something that you could put into your discussion, into your paper,
Yes,
if you
sir.
want.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Arlene, what do we have?
I think the recruitment and the selection process is useful, especially in our clients, because sometimes our clients are involving us when they're hiring people. So they also ask us to join the hiring process. And if if I were if it's for me to choose, I think I'll be more focusing on people with technical skills, because there are people that are not confident enough to express themselves. So I think that some of the people were missing. They're judging the people by not expressing themselves more, but like they omitting the capabilities to do their job. So I think that's it for me.
A very good observation. Sometimes we are missing out on the gems that are available out there because they are introverts. They are not necessarily yung mabongga, no? Right? If they were mabongga, you say, oh, galing siguro nito. And then in reality, puro salita lang pala. No? So you know, getting the right candidate has to be as remember that chart where there are good decisions and bad decisions. So the good decisions really are based on the facts. And if you were impressed about the person, you know, hold back muna kasi nakaka-impress yung ang bilis magsalita, ang galing ng mga words niya. Maybe the person actually does not have the capabilities. Okay, and you know, in a similar way, try to do that when you're also writing from here on. So whenever you write something, try to write what you think is supposed to be written rather than what you think the other person would like to hear, right? That's usually what we're like. I mean, even in the online discussion, you're probably thinking that I'm going to grade you because of your knowledge and your nice words. Actually, I'm looking for your insights. Yeah, you know, have you picked up something that's different? Are you just using certain words to impress me? So I'm not about getting impressed. I'm about understanding that you're learning something out of this. No? So this is very different from college. In college, you try to prove that you're very knowledgeable, but in graduate school, you have to prove to yourself that you are the right person um, to learn what it is you have to learn rather than to prove it to the instructor. Okay, it, for me, proving your knowledge is not as important as coming up with fantastic insights that you would never have figured out if you simply followed the book. Yeah? That's why, you know, when I hear questions here that are different from our topics, like is, you know, this is like Noviel said, is headhunting also similar to pirating? No, that's a that's a way of trying to connect to reality and your same situation. So it's very important that you pick up on those. Thank you very much, Arlene. We have Philip. Philip,
Sir.
would you be able to pick up
Um,
anything after?
Sir, okay, sir, based on what I was able to hear, I mean, based on what I was able to learn during, I think, 10 minutes duration of the discussion. Well, for me, so I think this lesson is very helpful for the managers and business owners in terms of hiring their employees. So parang um, if we are going to base here po in your PowerPoint, there are a lot of types of interviews kasi sometimes po the an employee would just present himself parang just to impress ganon. So sometimes you have to dig deeper into someone's characteristic ganon, parang um kasi parang may behavioral interview dito, situational, stress, structured. I think we all have our own strengths naman. Example, someone is very good in managing his or her stress, in his workload, mga ganun po. And um, ayun, ang dami po palang process kasi ayun, just to share, parang ako po kasi siguro kaya rin po ako nilagay dito, Green MBA daw po. Because ako po, I wasn't able to apply for work po since my parents po own a business here in Pampanga. So they are asking me just to be their companion since they were in their early 60s na. So ayun po. So instead of me applying for work and working for another, they just asked me to work for them and also to be trained na rin as well. So ayun po, there are some words for me that are not really familiar. I think also because I am not a business, and my undergrad is not a business course. Since I am an education graduate and I'm a let passer, sobrang, alam mo yun, sobrang laki ng difference na. I think this is a big leap for me, no, applying for an MBA program. So ayun, just to also give you a brief description of me since kakapasok ko pa lang ngayon, no. So ayun po, but still meron naman tayong mga course outline. I'll try my best to make an advanced reading ganun so I can catch up with you, no. So ayun lang po.
Very good. Anong industry ang business nyo?
Agriculture po, may poultry farm po kami sa Mexico.
Okay.
So, ayun po. Doon na lang po ako nag-focus since I graduated last 2017.
Yes.
So, ayun po.
Agriculture is having
Poultry farm po, sir. Yung mga naglilay po ng white eggs. So,
yes.
that's it. So if you can remember the issue about yung bird flu outbreak during 2017, we were on the ground zero. So some of the footage were from us. So ayun po, just to give you an idea. So ayun lang po. Kasi a lot of people would often ask me, what's a poultry farm? How does it look like? Blah, 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 ganun. So ayun po. At least, di ba? And transferee po ako. I am a transferee po. Meron na po akong, I already started taking MBA for only a semester in Manila. So ayun po, since the pandemic happened, a lot of things happened, a lot of things changed, ganon, emotionally, physically, financially. So I just decided to be enrolled here in Holy Angel for my
thank you
convenience.
very much.
Hello, sir. Okay. Hello po. Medyo choppy yata ako.
Okay.
Sir po ata. Yan.
Hindi ko alam kung naririnig pa ako ni sir.
Ayan po, si Sir
Sorry,
po
my
ata.
internet is unstable. Ako naman ang unstable ang internet.
Nawala na si sir.
Miss Novel, GMBA ka din po?
Yes po. Yes po.
Kayo po, Sir Philip, GMBA.
Green MBA?
Opo?
Yun ba yun? Dito ako, nung una in-apply ko, MBA, yung MBA program. Kaso sabi, kasi tinanong nila ako ng isang prof, tinransfer na lang ako ng GMBA.
Okay.
Mas fit daw ako. Since hindi kasi ako nag-work so yun yung medyo weakness ko. Kahit sa previous school ko. So nag-decide talaga ako, medyo nahihirapan kasi ako. UST kasi yun. So sabi ko, nahihirapan ako. So minsan pag may sharing, di ba? Ganun. Sobrang hirap akong So,
ako din naman, sir, don't
kasi
worry. Wala akong background. My BS is Environmental Science. Wala akong background for any financial or business ad. Punti lang, dalawa ata tayo. So, bali yung regular pala natin is 4 na kayo, ano? At least may 4 na kayo na regular. Kasi kami ni Miss Arlene, nag-start na kami last sem. So, may advance kami na 1 sem. Pero at least meron pala kayo. Andyan pala kayo 4 na regular. So, kayo din yung sasabayan namin na batch.
Okay.
Hello, Ted.
Sir, naka-mute po.
So sorry, akong na-disconnect. Nakakaya. Okay. Thank you, Philip.
So sir, thank you rin po.
I heard a lot, but I did not hear the last part. But thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I think you have a good possibility of making this work very well because Green MBA is really related. The biological cycle is very related to what you're doing. So you have very many opportunities to take advantage of that. Okay. So I'm sorry to keep you until 15 minutes past our scheduled time. So I'll just say thank you very much for your attention. Please take a look again at Module 2 if you haven't done yet Module 1, and that applies to you, Philip.
Yes
There
po.
will be recordings of the previous session and this session so that you can review it. And then please also complete the discussion fora. Those are the different ways of making sure that we can have shorter meetings and there's still a lot of activity, student activity. Okay, and thank you very much for your contributions, everyone. I will see you next week, same time, same channel.
Sir, I guess next week is a holiday.
Is it? Tama ba?
Ninoy Aquino Day. Ay, hindi. Parang, opo, sir. It's a holiday. Let's see. Wait lang.
Yeah, if it's a holiday, then we're going to do it to the following, we'll go to the following weekend. Okay, I can't see my calendar though for that, but I know that there are 2 holidays in August, and is one of them on the 21st? Tama ba?
Sir, Ninoy Aquino Day.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. I'll check, sir. I validate.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it. Holidays in August. Saturday, August 21, Ninoy Aquino Day. Okay. I will let you know how we go about doing this. And then there's National Heroes Day on August 30. But that's a Monday, so we're not affected. If necessary, we'll have to reschedule our meeting. Okay. I'll ask for your opinion. I don't think that we knew about the special non-working holiday until early this month. So thank you for reminding me. Thank you. Okay. So meanwhile, let's keep going with the online activities. So just follow what's there. Make sure you also read up on the next case and put in your preliminary answer on the Phil-Am Museum case. There's also a quiz on the difference between recruitment and selection, and I think that's the whole thing. Yeah, I think that's the whole thing. Okay, thank you very much. I'll let you know by email if there's any change to the schedule for next weekend. Okay. Otherwise, have a very good rest of your weekend, and I will see you online.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay, have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Ingat po.
Thank you po.